One of the phrases that people know me for is buyers are liars, sellers are worse. You'll even see this on my hoodie that I walk around with all the time. You'll see me on stage, you'll see it walking down hallways. It is a phrase that I love because this video you're about to watch is me talking to an agent and a seller who are simply trying to gather information so they can shop our offer to go a different direction. Now, here's what's interesting. The way that I got on this call is one of my students came to me and said, hey Pace, we've got an 18 unit deal in Utah. Now, I'm not gonna disclose who the seller and the agent are, we'll blur out their face. I don't wanna get in trouble with this, but the reality is this agent and this seller, all they were trying to do was obtain information. Now, how did I know this before the call? I knew this before the call because I had multiple people sending me the same deal to purchase. And so I said, oh, hey, Carly, who brought the deal to me, Carly Grunman, amazing human being. Carly brought the deal to me. I said, hey, Carly, just so you know, the seller is also going through this channel because I've already seen this deal over the last 2 or 3 weeks. And she says, oh my gosh, they said that they're ready to sign contract with us. They just need a little bit more information. I said, I don't think they do. I think the agent and the broker and also the seller do not understand creative finance, but they have a higher offer than yours on the table. Yet they know you are attached to me and I will overcome any objection or I will give any understanding that they don't currently have. And boy, was I right. I started out the conversation just saying, hey guys, let's just go through the information. You'll see I machine gun through the information very, very, very quickly, which is very different than the way I talk to most sellers. I talk to most sellers by mirroring those sellers and slowing down if it's somebody who speaks slowly, speeding up if it's somebody who speaks quickly, changing my vernacular and the terminology I use. I'll change my wording to adapt to the seller that I'm talking to. In this one, I didn't do that. And the reason I did not is because I knew the seller right from the get-go was lying to us and trying to shop multiple offers. This deal was brought to me like 30 days ago, something like that. And somebody was going to have me be their buyer and kind of play middleman on it. And I said, yeah, I'd love to buy this deal. So when my team got a hold of it recently, I was like, wow, this deal came back around. Seems like you guys have maybe found or discussed talking to other buyers over the last 30 days or so. Has it been challenging moving it or you just ran into a bunch of knuckleheads?
No, it's really like we've never done something subject to before. And so it's kind of been just, kind of a learning process for us to see if that type of structure makes sense for us. Ideally, we just like to sell them and be done with it. I mean, we're open, to other creative solutions. So.
Okay, cool. The people that you guys sent the deal to, that sent the deal to me, was there a reason why you didn't want to sell it to them? Did they just not have the ability to close? Or what I don't want to do is I don't want to give you guys a similar offer or commit the same foul that they did so we can stay on track.
Base, are you referring to like Bo and my buddy Dustin? Because he might have been the way that you saw this. He was at your mastermind.
Yeah, Dustin sent it to me, yeah.
Yeah. What's your relationship to Bo? Are you guys
Bo
connected?
is, so I run a multifamily fund as well. So we'll buy like $50 million this year in real estate through a fund. Most of the real estate that I acquire on my own with no private money lenders. I just do that on my own. But then about a year ago, we just said, hey, why don't we create a fund that, a lot of the people that want to participate, but they just can't operate themselves, they can participate in our fund. And so I hired Bo. I pulled him in from a company that had $5 billion in assets under management. And I pulled him as my main asset manager and my underwriter for that company. And so Bo will look at deals for me, but he's looking at those deals for me from the optics of the fund. And so he'll say no to 99% of things because they don't fit the fund and the model that our investors want. Yeah. But again, I buy most of my property on my own. And so I think maybe both times it's essentially come to me, Bo probably said no because it doesn't fit what our fund does. I think our fund has a minimum of $15 million purchase price, and so obviously that doesn't fit. So Bo must have said no, and then maybe that's where it fell apart. And then coming through my other team, which I then would be the sole purchaser, I don't raise the money, I just do the deal myself. My team will manage the asset ourselves as well. Bo's not involved in that individual bucket, if that makes sense.
Yeah, and that's exactly what happened. Bo dropped it. I mean, there was a disconnect between, his returns he needed to see and what he thought the per door value was. And he thought it was, in the 120 range, but it's way higher than that here in Utah.
I think the biggest challenge too, from Bo's perspective, is that Bo has to look at the time horizon from an individual investor, right? Like an investor, their minimum investment into our fund is $100,000. And that specific investor typically wants their money back within 3 to 5 years. And this is an asset that if I'm buying it at the purchase price that you guys are selling it at, I can't exit that fast. I've got to hold on for a longer time frame. So the time horizon just doesn't match up for the fund. It more matches up for the single purchase, which would be me, if that makes sense.
Totally. Yeah, that makes sense. Thanks for clearing that up. I was super confused when I got you again. I was like, well, I thought Pace has already seen this, but that makes so much more sense now.
Yeah, I was confused too. Bo, we get sent, I don't know, we probably get sent 40 or 50 deals a day, and Bo does not communicate with me whatsoever until we, we just bought like some Amarillo properties, and we bought a big $20 million deal down in Tucson, and nobody communicates with me until they get it under contract. I'm not really involved in the front end stuff. So even when he says no, I'm not communicated to. All I was told is that Dustin brought the deal to me. It didn't work out. I didn't know why it didn't work out, because it's almost like it's super like a separate silo, if that makes sense. And then the other team of mine brings it back to me. I was like, wait, why didn't we buy it over here? Like, did we do something wrong on that side? It sounds like it was just didn't fit the model for the fund is what it sounds like.
Yep.
I want to cut in here while we're making this video and let you know that we have the Squad Up Summit coming up. Go to squadupsummit.com to join. I'm going to tell you why you should be coming. You should be coming in and learning creative finance, creative deal structure, creative lending, creative paperwork, all the things that creative finance is changing the game with. My community is coming out. Subto, Astro, Gator, Vina Jetty's community, top tier transaction coordinators are coming out. All the people that do the creative finance paperwork, yeah, you're gonna meet them there. So if you feel like you're an island out there, like maybe you've read this book, right? You've read Wealth Without Cash. You're like, okay, what next? Cool. Well, now you know what you can do. You know what's possible. But who's going to help you get through it? You've got to meet some of my leaders in the community, and the best place to meet them is at the Squad Up Summits, April 23rd, 24th, and 25th in Orlando. I want to see you there. I'll be out there hanging out, some of the best speakers. I'm going to be the main real estate speaker. Jamil's going to be the main real estate speaker. We'll have Vina Jetty and some other people, but it's actually going to have a lot less speakers than most events. While everybody else is trying to cram speakers and give you way too much information, we're going to be building your business live. We're going to be giving you homework right there live. We're going to be guiding you through it, so when you walk away, you've actually built something, you've done something, and you've squad up with powerful leaders in my community that we've been building for years. Go to squadupsummit.com. I can't wait to see you April 23rd, 24th, and 25th in Orlando. Get back to the video. The main objective of this call, I think, is to discuss the due on sale clause and kind of how to get rid of that, how to eradicate that, or how to maybe avoid it altogether.
Yep.
Yeah, I think from our side, it's just it's just like weighing our risks. We've personally guaranteed the loan, like our homes, everything, are at stake. And so, Pace, I've seen your stuff online. So, you're a credible guy, to work with, and obviously know what you're doing here. But it's more, kind of education on my part, where I haven't done one of these before. Like how do we protect ourselves, in that scenario? And everyone says, like it's rare that clause gets,
it does get called. We have, I do tell people it is rare. It's 1 in about 500 transactions that we do. It does happen. And I always tell people, I go, plan on it happening 100% of the time. So you do your paperwork properly and you protect the seller from having a problem. We currently have a due on sale clause that we're going through right now in Texas. They do happen. I probably get one once a year. So they do happen. And you worrying about it is absolutely an important thing. And if you ever have a buyer that says, don't worry about it, then definitely don't go through that buyer.
Yeah.
There's a couple of different ways to go about it. How much time do you guys have? Because I could talk up a storm if you guys want me to.
I've got plenty of time.
Okay, cool.
Yeah, do it. We want to learn this.
Okay, cool. So there's 2 ways to do this, all right? And both of these ways, my team has been the pioneer of doing them the proper way over the last 10 years. We even have attorneys from all over the country that come into my office usually once a quarter, and they'll come in all over the country to learn how we're doing it. We have, we've sat down with attorneys that helped write the Dodd-Frank Act. We have attorneys that used to audit for the IRS. We pay them to come in and make sure that we do things the proper way. And so we're the team that leads the industry in this regard. Even my students that learn how to do this, they have to go through a few transactions before they truly own the information, if that makes sense. It's just like framing a house. Like I would never hire a guy that framed a house one time. I'd be like, I'm glad that you did it one time, but let's wait until you framed a house 3 or 4 times before I hire you to frame my family's house, right? We know this better than anybody else, so that's why I say how much time do you have, because I love talking about it. But there's 2 ways to go about doing it. First way to go about doing it is where most of your worry is going to come from, and that transaction is going to be a Subto deal, okay? Which means the deed transfers into my name and the mortgage stays in your name, and I just pay all my payments to a servicing company. We use a company called Westar. And Westar pulls the money out of my account. Westar then dumps the money and pays the principal, the interest, the taxes, the insurance. And then the 5th payment they make is to your seller equity portion of the deal. So they make 5 payments on my behalf. They charge me $27 a month to do that. So I'm never actually paying you directly. Westar pulls the money out of my account, distributes the money. I know some of this you probably don't need to hear, but it leads up to my actual point. So Westar sends us out monthly reports. They're the ones that are updating the taxes. They're updating the insurance. That's what they do for a business. So I don't have to track those things. I just pay them to track it, and I get a monthly report. And so do you as the seller. You get a monthly report on where we are in terms of the amortization schedule, et cetera. Now, we update the information on, where does the bank communicate? So the bank would then communicate with my team. We would get the letters, we would get the notifications, we'd get all of those things so that you wouldn't be bothered with them. And plus, we're managing the asset. We own the asset in that situation, and we want all the information. In that scenario, there is a likelihood or possibility of the due on sale clause getting called. Now, why does the due on sale clause get called? It gets called for a variety of different reasons, but typically it gets called because somebody doesn't make the payment. And that's never been why I've had it called, but sometimes a buyer in a Subto transaction will forget to make the payment because they're too cheap to hire Westar and pay them $27 a month. And they're basically managing that business like a mom and pop business. So they go, I don't want to spend the $27 a month because I'm a cheapskate, and I'm going to just manage the payments myself. They're late. The bank then notices they're late, sends them out a notice. They go, wait, hold on a second. The deed has transferred. What the heck is going on? And so they send that letter. So that is number one reason why this happens. Never happened to me, but that is the number one thing I happen to see in the industry. People being cheap and not hiring a servicing company. Number 2, insurance transference. So when you have insurance on the property, you will, when we close escrow on the deal, you will keep your policy in place. And about a week before we close escrow, I get a secondary policy in my name with you as a loss payee, as an additional loss payee. Okay, so the insurance would now primarily be in my name, and that's a second policy I have on the property. I do this prior to close so that just in case, because I've had sellers do weird things. A seller will call their insurance company and go, I'm canceling the insurance policy. I don't own the property anymore. And then we don't have an insurance policy. So we always do it about a week before we close escrow. I get a new policy. And a lot of times I'll go through your exact insurance agent. I'll call them up and go, hey, I need to get a second policy because we're going to now manage this property. We're going to take it over. About 30 days after we close escrow, the dust is settled on the deed transfer. We then have our insurance broker call the bank and say, hey, we're changing out our insurance provider. I want to just make sure you know this. And Pace's company is now managing the asset, so you'll see them on the insurance, and then you'll see the seller still as a loss payee. If it's not done properly, then this insurance can trigger the due on sale clause very easily as well, okay? Outside of those 2 things, the only time I've ever seen a due on sale clause get called is because the bank is so absolutely small that they actually pay attention to those types of things. And I have had that called on me. There's a bank that had 6 branches, and the president of the bank manually had all the foreclosure files sit on his desk in a stack of manila folders. And he manually entered and, put them back into good standing every Friday. He'd go through the whole stack himself manually. So it's just a really small bank. So the due on sale clause is a thing, and it's an issue, and it could pop up, okay? What typically happens is they send you a letter. Okay, and it's a letter that says, we are not calling the due on sale clause on you. We are giving you 35 days to deed the property back to the previous owner and get rid of this problem that we are seeing. Why do they not just issue the due on sale clause, and why don't they just come after the asset? Well, first and foremost, we know the most important thing on planet Earth as a real estate investor is to actually not be a real estate investor. Do you really, as Mr. Seller and even me, the buyer on this deal, do we really want to own real estate? The answer is, at the end of the day, no. If I could make passive income without owning the asset, that's actually what I'd rather do. And what do we call that? We call that banking. So the bank has already hit the top of the totem pole. They are the top of the totem pole. They are lending money on an asset they don't have to manage, they don't have to deal with, they don't have to know the tenants' names, etc. They don't want that asset back. Therefore, they don't call the due on sale clause. It's not their business model. Another big reason why they don't typically just go after the due on sale clause immediately is because their Moody rating, right? So they their bank gets a credit rating, and if they're foreclosing on properties, which is what they have to do in order to take the property back through a due on sale clause, a due on sale clause is actually a judicial foreclosure. So it costs the bank usually between $30,000 and $50,000. They have to take you through a foreclosure to take the home back or the asset back through a due on sale clause. No bank is motivated to do that because it messes up their credit rating, and then it causes them to have issues with their warehouse lines in the future. They won't be able to get warehouse lines if they get a lot of foreclosure. So it's not typically bank policy for them to even care about the due on sale clause. What they care about on the due on sale clause is if somebody, again, is late on a payment, that's a problem. And if somebody doesn't have insurance set up properly on the asset is also a significant problem. Therefore, that's typically where the due on sale clause comes from. Most of the banks are aware when I'm buying a property subject to, but if I'm doing it properly, they don't care. In fact, they're like, just keep making the payments. We don't care, right? So we get a lot of sellers. Like I have 2 RV parks right now in Montana that I'm buying. And I have sellers that just have a lower threshold in terms of risk tolerance. They go, okay, Pace, I got it. The bank doesn't want the property back. I get that you know how to do this the right way. I understand that you're the foremost guy on due on sale clause and but what if? What if we do get the due on sale clause? By the way, I'm still on scenario number 1. I'm gonna go to scenario number 2 here in a little bit. So in scenario number 1, if I do get the due on sale clause, which again, I've seen it happen 10 times and 7 of those times are me, 3 of those times have been students of mine that I've helped overcome the due on sale clause. The way that we do this is I deed the property back to you, the seller, and I repurchase the property on one of 2 different scenarios. And that then goes into scenario number 2, which I'll go into now. I then reset it up as either a lease purchase, where I'm now leasing the property and the lease payments go towards the mortgage and the lease payment goes towards the equity, et cetera. And the option to buy is whatever the remaining balance is at the day that I execute that option, whether I sell, I refinance, or I pay it off, whatever the execution exercise is. Or I purchase it on what is called, and this is where you're gonna wanna take some notes. This is where most people don't learn this in real estate school. Most people have to go to a real estate attorney to learn this, and that it's legal in all 50 states and it's being done hundreds of times in every single state. It's just very specific title companies and very specific closing attorneys know how to do this. It's called an executory contract. And an executory contract, for example, you're a Utah boy, so I assume that the answer to this question is yes, but I gotta ask. Have you ever purchased a vehicle with cash from a seller or sold a vehicle for cash to a seller in Utah?
Yes.
Okay. And what do we do? Let's say that I'm buying that vehicle from that seller. Have you ever bought one from a seller?
Yeah.
Okay, cool. So my first car, I lived in Pleasant Grove, Utah. My first car was $500. It was a Ford Escort. Man, I got that money from bagging freaking groceries at Smith's grocery store. I was so happy about that. And I was amazed by the fact that when the seller of that Ford Escort signed that car over to me, I didn't have to sign anything on that title. The seller signed the title, had it notarized, and passed the title over to me. I now hold that document, right? I now hold that document in my hand. So who is the owner of that Escort, even though I have not recorded that document at the MVD at that moment? Who is the owner? The truth is that I am, right? I control that document. Even though that document has not been recorded at the MVD, at public record, I legally control the most important document in that transaction. And that is what we call an executory contract. That is mostly how cars are bought and sold. And that is how you can convert the transaction into a number 2 transaction, which is I can have you, Mr. Seller, deed the property to me at close of escrow. But instead of us recording that deed at the county recorder's office, which is where the due on sale clause is actually triggered, we take that deed and we put it in a safety deposit box at Chase, Bank of America, Zions Bank, or whatever. And it sits there at the bank where I have access to it, you have access to it, as long as one or the other party signs off on it. You can set this up 100 different ways. But the way we do it, and the way I'm doing it with that RV park, is the seller, his risk tolerance is just really low. He's been screwed over by a lot of people, both business partners, family members, tenants. He just is like, dude, I have had so many people screw me over. I go, great. Why don't we set it up where we have the deed sit at the safety deposit box so that when I sell the property, when I refinance the property, or when I pay you off, the deed is there and I don't have to worry about chasing you down for the deed. Are you okay with that? And he goes, yeah, as long as you can't just go and pull the deed out. And I go, yeah, you would have to sign off on it. And same thing for me is I would have to sign off for you to take the deed out of the safety deposit box. He's like, yeah, I'm cool with that. But that's a negotiation, right? That you and I would have to figure out. Some sellers just go, take the deed, I don't care. Put it under your mattress, I don't care. But usually the larger the asset, the more risk there is. And so you've really got to kind of work that out. But the way to completely annihilate and remove and mitigate, not even mitigate, completely remove the risk of the due on sale clause is you can do what we call an executory contract. The executory contract, one of the reasons why we don't do it first and foremost as option number one, because it seems like, well, Pace, why wouldn't you just do the executory contract as option one instead of doing sub two? Well, there's a couple of reasons why. If I have a seller willing to do sub two with me, I just have more control. And I'll just be honest with you. As the buyer, I don't want to chase the seller down in 7 years and go, are you still alive? Are you and your wife in a marital dispute? Are you maybe on a mission for your church and I can't get a hold of you because you're in Ukraine or something? Like literally, these are real things that pop up, right? So I don't want to deal with that 7 years down the road or 5 or 3 years down the road. So I prefer as the buyer, the credible buyer, to have full control from day one. Now, as the seller, I could see the seller going, well, I don't know that you're credible and I don't want to release the deed to you. So if everything else is the same except for the control of the deed, I would rather go through the executory contract because I don't know you from Adam and I don't even want the risk of the due on sale clause popping up. In an executory contract, there is literally zero risk of the due on sale clause popping up because the due on sale clause is triggered when I take this document and I record it at the county recorder's office through my title company. And now the bank can see that that transference has actually happened. If, for example, this is a really good example for me. When I bought my Escort, I bought that car. And when I went on my mission a couple years later and I went to sell the car and I go, oh crap, where's my title? And my mom goes, did you ever even get a title on that? And I go, yeah, I got the title. And I go in, I didn't find the title. I found the document where the seller sold it to me, but I never recorded it and got the title in my name. And I go, oh my gosh, I never owned the car. And my dad actually had to come and tell me because my dad had been doing sub two and seller finance transactions prior to all of this. And my dad goes, no, you control the document, which means you are the owner of the asset. I go, so what do? Do I go down to the MVD and record it? Now I'm the owner, now I can sell it? And my dad goes, no, the previous seller already signed off on the transference, just hand the new buyer the document. And I'm like, so my name never had to be on it one time? He goes, no, you had control of it. I'm like, oh my gosh, I can do this. And real estate was an amazing revelation for me. And this is something in Utah, it's called a land contract, or some people call it a contract for deed. You might have heard those things. In Arizona, we call it an agreement for sale. And other states like Pennsylvania, they call it a bond for deed. There's different names for it in every state, but the high level overarching umbrella term for it is an executory contract. So you've probably heard contract for deed or land contract before, correct? So that's what it is. And it doesn't mitigate, which means lessen. It removes the risk of the due on sale clause. It still gives me, the buyer, comfort knowing that you've already signed off on the deed. We just haven't transferred it and it just sits in a safety deposit box. But then it gives you, the seller, control knowing, okay, well, what if Pace gets abducted by an alien? Which, unlikely, but weirder things are happening, right? What if I get abducted by an alien and nobody makes the payments to you or the bank? You probably, as the seller, want to go, yeah, give me that asset back. I don't want to have to foreclose on you. I don't want to have to go through this whole entire process to get this property back. All you would have to do is go back to the safety deposit box. And based on our agreement that says if I'm ever late, if I ever commit a foul or breach contract the way that we set it up, which, I would pay for an attorney to set it up and then you could have somebody review it, whatever. You would then go, okay, well, you've breached contract, dude. I'm giving you 3-day notice. You have 3 days to clean up this breach. And if I don't clean up my breach, you go down to the safety deposit box, you pull it out and you get the deed back and it's your property again. So down payments that I gave you, any commissions I paid to the broker, closing costs, any improvements I've made on the property, all the payments I've made towards your seller equity, all the payments I made towards your bank note, all of that you keep and you get the property back immediately. So it does give you a lot of power and it gives you a lot of control. An executory contract gives both parties kind of the balance there as long as the release of the deed is worked out really, really cleanly. Here's what happens with me as a buyer, right? As an educator, I educate really, really well. And so what happens is people will come and get educated from me. And then they'll go and shop my offer, they'll shop my LOI, and then what will end up happening is in a week, somebody will call me and go, hey, I've got an 18 units in Ogden. I see every deal. I see them all. And the majority of buyers are not actually buyers. The majority of buyers are wholesalers in today's market, right? People are hurting. And so whoever the buyer ends up being, a couple of suggestions. Hopefully it's me, but I can't guarantee that. And you guys are businessmen, so you want to keep your cards as close to your vest as possible. I would suggest a couple of things. Number one, make sure that you require the entity that signs the document to close escrow on the deal. So whatever's on the purchase, and I don't know what entity we're gonna end up buying in, but whatever entity we end up buying in, make sure that that entity is who signs and closes the transaction. Also, make sure that the proof of funds does not come from a hard money lender, because you'll run into this a lot with wholesalers. You'll say, can we get a proof of funds? And the funny thing is, I give people for proof of funds for a lot of fix and flip stuff and whatnot, but you're not looking for a proof of funds for a fix and flip, which is okay to come from a hard money lender. You want your buyer to actually have the cash sitting in their actual bank account in the entity that they are closing in. And so what'll happen is sellers will call me a month later and they go, hey, we're just circling back around. In fact, our Tucson property, the one we just closed on, 160 units, $20 million. This is exactly what happened. Sellers and their broker come to me. They get educated on the process. I go, you're probably gonna shop me. They go, no, we're not gonna shop you. I'm like, bull crap, you're not gonna shop me. You're gonna shop me. That's what the business is. You're gonna shop me. I know the business, you know the business, but for some reason we just you can't admit it. But they go and shop me, even though they say they won't. We actually have a signed LOI. So in the commercial world, an LOI is basically a contract, right? It's not, but it basically is. In single family, we don't do LOIs. We just do purchase contracts. But in commercial, you do an LOI. So we had agreed upon LOI. All of a sudden, the broker starts ghosting me. I'm like, oh, dude. So I sent him a text. And I said, man, you're embarrassed to just tell me you're shopping me around. So I'm going to tell you, you have my permission to shop me around. Just make sure that you do these things. And if they can't do those things, then I'm here still to be your buyer. And so the broker's like, thank you, was his only reply was thank you. He still didn't want to admit he was shopping me. So he just said, thank you. So about a month later, they come back to us and they go, hey, we had a higher offer. Somebody gave us a higher offer. And I go, where did it fall apart? And he goes like, dude, how much time do you have? They were trying to close in a different entity, which means they were just trying to wholesale it. Then they had another buyer that gave them a hard money lender's proof of fund. I'm like, so they're going to close on a $20 million asset with a hard money lender as their down payment? Like, that's what you want as a buyer? Somebody who's borrowing money for their down payment? Anyway, they went through the litany of stuff. So I would say you can't wholesale it. I would put in there, they specifically cannot wholesale the transaction. They also cannot double close the transaction. Because what does a wholesaler do when they can't wholesale? They double close. They'll close at a title company. The title company won't tell you, the seller, that they closed and then immediately double closed to the next buyer, essentially transferring all of the terms that you, the seller, if you do not have a relationship as the seller, you are the bank. You don't have a relationship with the buyer if they wholesale it or they double close. You don't even know who that person is. And now you're receiving payments and somebody's managing an asset that you don't know if they have the ability and the wherewithal to actually handle that asset. I'm speaking common language to you guys, and you already know this stuff. A big one as well, make sure that their earnest money is a significant earnest money. What's the purchase price on this? What was the LOI's purchase price?
3.7.
Okay, so I wouldn't be asking for, $5,000 down. I wouldn't be asking for $10,000. I would probably be asking for, I don't know, probably 1% of the purchase price minimum, $36,000. Ask for something so significant that you're like, if this buyer screws around on me and messes around with me and tries to renegotiate with me, because that's the other thing a lot of buyers will do. They'll get you into contract because now guess what you have? You have invested time and energy. And now there's an emotional thing. You get 20 days into the escrow and they come back and renegotiate with you after you've put not just 20 days of time and energy into it, but you've also told all the other prospective buyers to take a hike and you've made yourself look like an idiot. Because now when you go and chase back those buyers who maybe were credible, you wasted 20 days. The wholesale buyers know this. And so what they do is and I teach wholesale. I wholesale from time to time when I don't want a deal. So I'm okay with wholesaling, but if you are seller financing a deal at this significant of a purchase price, make sure that the buyer that contracts with you is closing in the entity that they signed on. It is required that you cannot wholesale it. They cannot double close. They have to show a proof of funds from their bank account that is also the bank account that is closing escrow on the deal. Or like, for example, I'll buy in an LLC called Moving Forward Ventures. And then I have a company of my own named Creative Funding where I fund my down payments from myself to myself. It's a tax thing. My name's on both those LLCs, nobody else. So in the very least, even if the money comes from a different LLC, verify that it's actually coming from that buyer rather than some outside person that's not the person that you're doing business with. So, I mean, you've been in the business, you don't need me to tell you all of these things, but just as the seller, I would forewarn you. A lot of times, I'd say 10% of the deals I buy are deals that fall apart because the seller financed them to somebody who was not either A, one of my students, or B, somebody that didn't know what the heck they were doing at all. Like they just didn't know. And so they come to me and they go, hey, I saw you online. Would you be willing to buy the deal? And I go, you have to foreclose on that person first, who is not operating, take the property back through a judicial foreclosure because the paperwork was set up in their favor, not yours, or at least middle ground. And then you can sell the property to me. And then the sellers will say something like, well, will you call them and see if you can buy the property from them? And a lot of times I will. I'll call the buyer and I'll say, hey, my name's Pace. And they go, oh yeah, I watched you on your YouTube channel. That's how I learned how to do this. I'm like, you did it all wrong, bro. And by the way, you're not managing the asset. You're paying the seller late. The seller is upset. You need to offload this to an appropriate operator who knows how to handle tenants and basically has a war chest of cash to overcome these things. And they go, well, yeah, dude, I'm new and I'm just figuring this stuff out. I'm selling a car next week that I can come up with that money to pay the seller. I'm like, oh my gosh. Sell the deal to me. I'll pay you $10,000 to walk away. And I'll fix all the paperwork and you can leave. And they go, oh, dude, you don't know what that would mean to me if you could just get me out of this deal. So a lot of buyers they get in over their head. So anyway, there's my advice. Take it for whatever it's worth. Hopefully it's been helpful.
Oh, it's valuable.
Yeah, I mean, we'll take another look. I just need to kind of run this by my partners and see how how it shakes out for us. But yeah, we'll get back to you.
Okay, sounds good, guys. Appreciate you. So what has happened since then? The seller who said, oh yeah, we're moving forward with you. We're excited. This is great. Let's get back to you. Immediately, like maybe 24, 36 hours later, sent us an email and said, hey, we are taking the house off the market. We decided to change our minds. We are not going to sell the property anymore, which is a lie. They are selling the property. They're just selling a property to somebody who is a higher offer. So in the hopes that maybe the seller, actually no, I have no hope. The seller is going to go sell to somebody else. It is what it is. And maybe somebody's willing to offer more money than me, and that's perfectly fine. Somebody beat us to the punch and I helped them basically. The lesson of this video is welcome to this business. You might have to be teaching agents and the sellers, and ultimately that lead ends up closing with a different buyer. Welcome to the business. See ya.